The afternoon sun scorched the cracked asphalt of the grocery store parking lot, making the air shimmer in waves of heat. People rushed in and out, clutching shopping bags filled with cold drinks and summer fruits, complaining about the temperature as they climbed into their air-conditioned cars. But there, in the narrow strip of shade beside the cart return, sat a man who hadn't felt the comfort of cool air in years. His name was David Carter, though no one had called him by name in a long time. To most, he was just another homeless man, invisible, forgotten, a part of the scenery people pretended not to notice. He wore an old military jacket despite the heat, the fabric stained and frayed, with a faint, faded American flag patch still clinging to the sleeve. His boots were worn down to almost nothing, the soles separating from the leather, and his skin had the sunburnt, weathered look of someone who'd lived too long outdoors. But what stood out most were his eyes, sharp, clear, and tired. The kind of eyes that had seen too much. A small piece of cardboard sat in front of him, its edges curling. Scrawled across it in uneven handwriting were 4 words. Just water, please. God bless. He didn't ask for money. Didn't beg. He just sat quietly, occasionally glancing at the bottles of cold water people carried in their carts. Every few minutes, someone would look his way, and then quickly look away again, guilt flickering across their faces before disappearing into indifference. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, turning the metal cart rails too hot to touch. David's lips cracked, his throat burned, he shifted uncomfortably, every movement making his body ache. He had once been strong, a Marine who could run miles with a full pack and still smile at the finish line. But those days felt like a lifetime ago. Now, he was just tired. He closed his eyes for a moment, remembering the desert, the sandstorms, the deafening sounds, the faces of the men he'd served beside. Some never came home. Those who did carried ghosts that never left. He had tried to rebuild his life when he returned. He really had. But jobs were scarce, the nightmares relentless. One mistake led to another, missed rent, unpaid bills, and then the slow unraveling that ended with him sleeping under bridges. Yet, through it all, he tried to keep a little hope. He didn't blame people for walking past. Most were fighting their own battles. But oh, how he wished someone would just see him, not as a problem, but as a person. That's when Rachel Miller appeared. She wasn't supposed to stop that day. She was running late from work, her mind racing through the long list of things to do: pick up groceries, cook dinner, finish her presentation for tomorrow. Her 6-year-old son, Eli, sat in the shopping cart, swinging his legs and singing off-key to a song he made up. Rachel smiled at him as they left the store, her cart full and her mind half elsewhere. As she pushed the cart toward her car, Eli suddenly pointed and said, "Mommy, that man looks thirsty." Rachel followed his tiny finger and saw David sitting there with his cardboard sign. At first, she did what everyone else did, she looked away. It wasn't that she didn't care. She did, but she'd been taught to be careful. The world could be unpredictable, and she had a child with her. Still, something in that moment tugged at her heart. Maybe it was the way Eli said it, with such pure, innocent concern, or maybe it was the way the man sat so still, so quietly proud, not begging, not even calling out. Just waiting. Rachel stopped. For a second, she hesitated, her hand gripping the cart handle. The little voice inside her whispered all the usual things: "You don't have time, it's not safe, someone else will help." But another voice, softer yet stronger, said, "He asked for water. You can give water." She took a deep breath and walked toward him. David noticed her coming and tried to sit a little straighter. His instincts told him not to expect much. People sometimes stopped just to stare or drop a few coins with pity in their eyes. But this woman looked different. Her steps were cautious, but her gaze was kind. "Sir," Rachel said softly as she approached. "Are you all right?" David looked up. His voice was hoarse when he spoke. "Just a bit thirsty, ma'am. I'll be fine." His words were polite, almost formal, like a man who refused to let go of his manners even when life had stripped everything else away. Rachel's eyes softened. She glanced at the bottled water in her cart, the cold condensation dripping down the plastic. Without another thought, she reached in, pulled one out, and handed it to him. "Here," she said, "it's cold." David took it with trembling hands. "Thank you," he whispered. He opened it carefully, like it was something precious, and took a slow sip. Then another. The relief on his face was almost painful to watch, gratitude mixed with disbelief. Eli, curious, peeked over the edge of the cart. "Mommy, Is he a soldier? David smiled faintly. Was, son. A long time ago. Eli's eyes widened. Like the ones who save people. David chuckled softly, though his voice cracked. Something like that. Rachel felt a lump rise in her throat. She knelt down beside her son. You know what, sweetheart? Why don't we thank him for his service? Eli turned serious, nodded, and said in his small but steady voice, Thank you, Mr. Soldier. For a moment, the noise of the parking lot faded away. David's eyes glistened. No one had spoken to him like that in years, not with respect, not with sincerity. Thank you, young man, he said quietly. Rachel hesitated, then asked, Have you eaten today? David shook his head, embarrassed. No, ma'am, but please, don't worry about me. The water's more than enough. But Rachel couldn't just walk away now. She opened one of her grocery bags and pulled out a sandwich, an apple, and a granola bar. Please take these, she said. You'd be doing me a favor. I bought too much anyway. David's hands trembled as he accepted the food. He looked at her, trying to find the right words, but emotion caught in his throat. You have no idea what this means, he finally managed to say. Rachel smiled softly. It's okay. We all need a little kindness sometimes. As she turned to leave, she didn't realize someone nearby had been filming the moment on their phone, a random passerby who had noticed her stopping when no one else would. That simple act of compassion, unnoticed by Rachel and David, was about to travel far beyond that hot parking lot. David sat in silence for a while after she left, the cold water bottle still in his hands. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel invisible. He whispered to himself, maybe the world isn't all bad. In that one simple moment, one woman, one bottle of water, one quiet exchange, would soon remind millions of people across the country that kindness, no matter how small, still has the power to change everything. That night, the city glowed with restless energy. Cars streamed past the sidewalks, restaurants buzzed with laughter, and somewhere under a flickering streetlight, David sat quietly near the same grocery store where his life had changed just hours before. He had eaten the sandwich Rachel gave him slowly, savoring every bite. It wasn't just food, it was warmth, a reminder that he wasn't completely forgotten by the world. The bottle of water sat beside him, half empty, condensation now gone, but he couldn't bring himself to throw it away. It felt like a symbol of something more, a simple act that had restored a bit of his faith in humanity. What David didn't know was that the world was already watching. The next morning, Rachel woke up to dozens of missed calls and messages. Her phone buzzed non-stop, notifications piling up from friends, coworkers, even people she hadn't spoken to in years. Confused, she sat up in bed, rubbed her eyes, and opened her phone. And there it was, a video, grainy but clear, showing her and little Eli handing water and food to a homeless veteran. The caption read, "A stranger's kindness. Woman stops to help veteran asking for water." The video had already been shared hundreds of thousands of times. Comments poured in, thousands of people from around the world writing things like, "Greater than, faith in humanity restored. This made me cry. More people like her, please." She didn't do it for the camera, that's what makes it real. Rachel's jaw dropped. She hadn't even noticed anyone filming. She never intended to go viral, she just couldn't walk past a man who needed help. "Mommy, you're on the phone." Eli giggled, climbing onto the bed. Rachel laughed softly but felt a little uneasy. "Yeah, baby, looks like someone recorded us yesterday." She scrolled further and saw something that made her heart stop. People were trying to find the veteran. Dozens of comments read, "Who is he? Let's help him." Others tagged veteran organizations, local shelters, even news outlets. Rachel put a hand over her mouth. Could this really change his life? She quickly dressed, bundled Eli into the car, and drove back to the grocery store. Her heart pounded the whole way, unsure what she would find. When she arrived, she scanned the parking lot, but the corner where David had sat was empty. The card return stood deserted, his cardboard sign gone. She searched for nearly an hour, driving slowly down nearby streets. Finally, near the small park a few blocks away, she spotted a familiar figure sitting on a bench under a tree, his jacket draped over the backrest. "David," she called gently as she parked the car. He looked up, blinking in surprise. "Miss Rachel," she smiled, walking toward him. "I was worried I wouldn't find you." David chuckled softly. Didn't think anyone would come looking. Rachel sat down beside him. "Something happened last night," Someone filmed us when we met. The video's everywhere. He frowned, confused. Everywhere. Yes, she said, pulling out her phone. Look. She showed him the video, their brief exchange, Eli's innocent, thank you, Mr. Soldier, and the moment David smiled through tears. The clip had millions of views now. David stared at the screen, silent. His hands trembled slightly as he whispered, people are watching this. They are, Rachel said, and they're asking how they can help you. He shook his head, disbelief written all over his face. Ma'am, I didn't do anything special. I just asked for water. And I just gave it, Rachel said softly. But sometimes the smallest things can ripple the farthest. As the day went on, news vans started showing up near the grocery store. A local reporter recognized Rachel's car and approached her for an interview. She hesitated. She didn't want attention, but when they mentioned that veteran groups were searching for David, she agreed. Within 24 hours, the story had reached national news. Anchors talked about the woman who stopped, about the veteran who asked for water. But more importantly, people wanted to help. Donations poured into veteran charities. A nearby homeless outreach center offered to help David find housing and reconnect with medical care. When volunteers found him again, he was still sitting under that same tree. Overwhelmed but grateful, they offered him a warm meal, a shower, clean clothes, and an appointment with a counselor who specialized in veterans' mental health. David's first night in a real bed after years of sleeping on the ground was almost too much for him. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, his chest tight with emotion. He didn't feel like he deserved all this kindness from strangers. But he also couldn't deny how much it meant. In the following weeks, his story continued to spread. People sent letters, veterans who said his courage reminded them they weren't alone, mothers who told Rachel they'd shown the video to their kids to teach them kindness, and even soldiers from his old unit who reached out after recognizing him. One of them, Sergeant Mark Jensen, drove across 2 states just to see him. When they met, David's eyes welled up. The 2 men hugged tightly, silent for a long time. Brother, Mark said finally, his voice cracking, we thought we lost you. David smiled faintly, guess I just got a little lost myself. Together, they shared stories of their old days, the laughter, the fear, the things they'd never told anyone else. For the first time in years, David felt like he belonged somewhere again. Meanwhile, Rachel watched all of this unfold with quiet awe. She hadn't sought fame or praise, but she couldn't deny the impact the story had. In interviews, she kept saying the same thing. Greater than, kindness doesn't need an audience. It just needs a moment. Weeks later, a local veteran support group hosted an event in honor of those who'd fallen on hard times. David was invited as a guest speaker. Nervous, he stood on the small stage, wearing clean jeans, a fresh shirt, and that same old jacket, now repaired and washed. The audience sat quietly as he took the microphone. I spent a long time thinking the world forgot about people like me, he began, his voice steady but soft. And maybe I forgot how good people can be. I asked for water that day because I was thirsty, but what I got was a reminder that kindness still exists. That one moment saved me in more ways than I can explain. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. After the event, Rachel and Eli hugged him tightly. We're so proud of you, she said. Thank you, David replied, smiling down at Eli. And thank you, little man. You reminded me that heroes come in all sizes. Eli grinned. You're my hero too. Months later, David moved into a small apartment provided by the Veterans Foundation. He started volunteering there himself, helping other former soldiers find jobs and housing. Every time he handed someone a bottle of water, he remembered that scorching day, and how everything changed because one woman didn't walk past. As for Rachel, she went back to her normal life, though every time she visited the grocery store, she glanced at that same spot near the card return and smiled. The space was empty now, but in her heart, it held something sacred, a reminder that even a single act of compassion could ripple through millions of hearts. The video eventually faded from headlines, replaced by newer stories. But its impact never vanished. Somewhere, a stranger still thinks twice before ignoring someone in need. Somewhere, a veteran gets help because people remembered David's story. And somewhere, on a quiet evening, David Carter sits by his window, sipping a cup of coffee, watching the sunset, whispering the same words he said that first day. Maybe the world isn't all bad. Because sometimes, it only takes one bottle of water to remind the world how powerful kindness can be.